whatever it is where you are, and welcome to Kirsty Knits and Sews. My name is Kirsty. I live in Rzeszów in Poland with my husband and 2 children. I've been living here for 10 months, and before here I lived in Australia. Thank you for coming and checking out Kirsty Knits and Sews. You can find me on Instagram and Rivalry as Kirsty Knits and Sews, and I will link down below where you can find me on Instagram, Rivalry. I put all of my projects that I'm currently working on Rivalry, so if you're interested in finding out more about what I'm doing, you can go and check out my project pages on Rivalry, or you can watch previous episodes or ask questions below and I will do my best to answer them. Today is August 9th. It is a Tuesday morning. I usually record on Tuesdays because my son is in preschool and my daughter has a nap. So this is my quiet time of the week, really. Preschool nap with no other plans on Tuesday mornings. Okay, so this is my channel for crafty goodness, knitting. You can see I do some sewing as well, crocheting, but mostly this is a knitting podcast. So you will expect to see some things about knitting here. Now today I've done things slightly differently. I keep track of all of my projects in this book. It is the Bullet Journal for Knitters and it is designed by Hanna Hansrud at Middelstrik. I'll put the link down below for her Instagram. I bought this at the end of last year. It's a 2022 knitting journal and this is where I keep track of my projects. So I decided today, instead of writing up show notes specifically, I would try and work from this and see how it goes. If you watched my last episode, you'd know that I'm trying to do a less editing podcast at the moment. One where I don't have to go back and watch through everything that I've said in order to edit things and post it, because I just don't have that much time. And what was happening was one Tuesday I'd record, the following Tuesday I'd edit and post, and then I'd have a week or 2 off and then I would repeat it. So when I was recording, maybe 3 weeks apart, you were only seeing them a month apart. Or a month, yeah. Anyway, it was not great. So I'm trying to do a less editing, more content podcast. But with that, I'll see if I can just work off this instead of having separate show notes, because to be fair, pretty much everything is already in this book. Why am I rewriting it again? Why am I taking more time? I was planning to write show notes last night, but instead I got distracted knitting and may have cast on a new project and decided to spend the time with my husband watching TV and knitting instead of writing show notes. And then completely forgot about the show notes until I went to bed and went, I'll just try it this way tomorrow. So this is what we're trying. Since the last project, the other thing that will be a bit different is that occasionally throughout the week, if I'm working on something, I'll just record a little something as I'm doing it. So you can see a little bit more of the process behind what I'm doing, not just this is where I'm up to, this is a finished object. The Knitter's Life, Whiskey and Wool, has a podcast and she does things that way. And I really enjoy watching her podcast, both for what she's knitting and the content, but also the way that she kind of walks through some of those behind the scene things a bit more. So I thought, why not try that? I pulled out a project that I have not touched for 2 years. And so I thought, why not have a video as I pull that out and try and figure out what's going on, rather than just kind of sitting here and explaining the process I went through. So that will be a little bit more editing, but I think it'll be worth it. Let me know if you enjoyed that at the end. Yeah. All right, so welcome again. I am drinking tea today, reheated. We drink loose leaf tea from a teapot, and I drink my tea black. So I will use the same cup for a full day, maybe 2 days, or until my husband puts it in the dishwasher. And so it gets a little bit tanniny on the inside, but I don't mind. But this is my Scrappy Sunday mug from the Crazy Sock Lady. I absolutely love it. I use it whenever it's clean. I use it when I'm not working on scrappy projects, but especially when I am. And it's just a good size, it has a large top so the tea cools down quicker, but I don't have milk, so it's nice to have it cool down a bit quicker so I can drink it. But yeah, so we use teapots, and we don't have a tea cozy to match the one that I'm using at the moment. Okay, my sister, Melinda Knits and Sews, made my husband a beautiful crazy chicken tea cozy for Christmas. But then I broke the lid of the pot that was knit to match. And so we're using our bigger teapot that the tea cozy does not fit, and I haven't made one. I keep thinking if I get chunky yarn or something I can just do something quickly, but I just haven't. It hasn't been a high enough priority, so the tea stays hot until we pour a cup and then it cools down very quickly, and so I often will just fill up my cup and chuck it in the microwave to reheat. That's just how we're doing it. So it's black tea. I can't even tell you what type. My husband made the pot this morning and I just reheated it. Okay. And you can see I am in my sewing space, not my knitting space, because my knitting space is not very pretty. My sewing space is much prettier. And if you can see here, some washi tape on the wall, and there's a tiny little bit here. If I tip it back, I have washi tape on the walls because I am planning to get some shelves, a pegboard here and some shelves over here. And I've just been trying to figure out what style I want. And washi tape is working really well. I already had it, chucked it up. Cool. All right, finished objects. You can probably see I am wearing a jumper, and yes, this is a finished object. And I actually have finished 2 jumpers since the last podcast, or 2 sweaters. Australian jumpers and sweaters are often interchangeable. In other places, a jumper is a type of dress. So 2 sweaters, 2 knitted sweaters that I finished since the last podcast. One of them I actually can't show you yet. It was a test knit, and the person who designed it has asked that we keep the finished project under wraps until it goes live, the pattern goes live, which should be hopefully this month sometime. It was going to be released in the middle of summer, in the middle of the European Polish summer. But then she went, who wants to be knitting sweaters in jumper? Sweaters in summer. And so she changed the release date to August. So hopefully that'll be released soon and I can show you. I've actually knit 2 of them already. And I love them. And I don't think I'd make another one for me, but I probably would make one as a gift. Anyway, so that's one finished sweater that I can't show you yet. This is the other one. Oh, I love this sweater. Okay. So this sweater is actually a free pattern. Let me scoot back and stand up so you can see a little bit. It's nice and big and comfy. It has cables all under the arm. This is called the Honeycomb Aran by Patterns. Patterns, the yarn company. It's a free pattern by Patterns. It is beautiful. Now, the reason I started this sweater, well, let me go back a little bit. The yarn for this, I don't have any actually to show you the ball. But the yarn for this, I bought 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago, maybe a little longer. I did a cable knit sweater for my husband in a ruby red and maybe burgundy-ish, ruby red, maroon, one of those families of colours. And I decided I wanted to knit one for me as well. I've always wanted a cable knit sweater, a hand knit cable knit sweater, and I had books and patterns and all sorts of things, and then I thought I will make myself one that matches the one that I've made my husband. And then I finished my husband's one and it was way too big. Like, it would have been an okay land around the house one, but it was too big. And so we ended up giving that one away to someone that it fits great, and it's a great Christmas jumper with the colour. So I'm very happy with who we gifted it to. But it means that my husband still does not have one. So when I came to knitting my own, I didn't really want to make the same pattern as the one that I had tried to make for him, because that would then match my neighbour. And I thought that would be a bit weird. But then the Crazy Sock Lady hosted with someone else. Maybe it was co-hosted. The Crazy Sock Lady, anyway, was one of the hosts who did the Crazy Cabled Sweater Knit Along. And I thought, I have the yarn already, it's been sitting for, at that point, 2.5 years, let's pick it up and pick a pattern. And I had a few cable patterns that I had an eye on, and then she, Kay Litton of the Crazy Sock Lady Co., was going to do this one. And I could not get this out of my mind. And these small cables, I wasn't really looking forward to knitting, but I loved the pattern, and like how this down the arm matches this on the front. Anyway, I could not get it out of my mind. It's called the Honeycomb Aran. And I knew I had the yarn. I thought it would look beautiful in the like creamy colour that I have, and so I just went, we're going to get it. We'll do that. It was a free pattern, always brilliant. And then Kay Litton of the Crazy Sock Lady actually chose to do a different pattern because there was some errata in this one, some errors that had been addressed or something. And a few people had found it a bit difficult, and it was her first cable project, so she just said, I want one that I know will be a bit easier without those possible problems. But I've done cable sweaters before, so I thought, why not? I'll give it a go. I really like it. I'm willing to risk it. So I went on to Rivalry and I read all of the information that other people had said and what they found. And I said, I'm just going to jump in, but I will make one modification. And that is here, where you can see these two cables seaming. The pattern actually has the edge of the cable being the part that you are sewing together, the seaming together. And someone said they found it really hard and annoying, and so suggested you do an extra knit stitch down the side that wasn't in the pattern, just an extra stocking stitch row, so knit on the right side, purl on the wrong side, so that when you came to seaming, you could seam those two stitches together and still have the complete cable. So I did that, and I'm really happy with how it worked out. I think if I was writing this pattern, I'd probably even just finish on the purl, like a double purl or something, so that you end up with a break between those two cables. But I don't mind not having a break, and having that extra stitch definitely helped. So you can see the same on the other side. So that was the only change that I consciously made to the pattern. I say consciously, I may have made a mistake at some point. But that was the only change that I consciously made. I would say, if you're thinking of doing it, doing the same, adding a knit stitch to the edges of the sleeve so you can seam that together a bit easier, I would recommend. There were times that I was seaming the cables together. But of course, if you do that, you do end up with just a tiny bit of a wider sleeve or a tiny bit of a wider body. I didn't mind having a wider body. You get like positive ease anyway. 4 stitches, it wasn't going to bother me. So this is done in Bendigo Woolen Mills Luxury 10 ply. It is colour 302. I believe it's cream. So nice and easy. It's 300 metres to 200 grams, and it's a worsted, a 10 ply. I started with 5 balls, so 5 200 gram balls, and I had to order another one and get it shipped over from Australia because I ran out. And I realised I was going to run out, and so the Crazy Cabled Sweater Knit Along actually finished on the 1st of June, and I finished this on the 5th of August. So 2 months late, but once I knew that the yarn wasn't going to arrive, I lost steam, or I yeah, the yarn arrived like a day late, so it was close. But I lost steam and I had other things that I was working on that I had deadlines for, so I just pushed this to the side. But when I finished the other sweater, which shall not be shown, I was like, I want to knit on sweaters. And this one, I was about here when I showed it last on the podcast. The 2 sleeves were done, the back was done, and I was about here on the front. And so I picked it up and I just went. And it took maybe 2 days once I decided to do it. I just picked it up, did it, loved it. And with this, you block it before you seam it, but you block it by putting it to size and then putting a damp towel over the top. Now, I've never done it that way before. I usually just submerge wet the yarn or the garment and then lay it out on blocking mats to dry, pin it if I need to pin it to size. But this one I was like, oh, okay, maybe it'll be quicker if you put towels on top rather than just wetting the yarn the whole way. It was fine in terms of blocking. It did exactly what it needed to do, but I actually wondered if the towels made it take longer to dry, because instead of having 1 layer, you had 2 layers, and the towels I used were quite thick. I don't know. But it worked, and then you pick up the stitches for the collar. I did make 2 more changes actually. One is when I picked up stitches for the collar, it said leave the 4th raglan open and then knit back and forward on the collar. I did not want to do that. I much prefer knitting in the round, so I knit it in the round, and that way I didn't have to join it. So I joined all of the raglans before I did the collar, picked up the stitches for the collar, and I did 1 less stitch than what the pattern said, so that I could do it knitting in the round, because the way that they'd done it had left an extra stitch for seaming. So I did make that change. And then the other one was the inside. Let's see if I can show you this. Look at that beautiful thing. So it's a folded over collar, which is according to the pattern with a twisted rib. Oh, love this jumper. But it said cast off the collar and then seam it down. But instead, I did something which was much more complicated, but meant I didn't have to sew. I could do it as a bind off. And what that was I picked up the cast on stitch and knit it together. Like for this row, I picked up the cast on stitch and knit it together with the stitch at the top of the row. And then I did a bind off as I went. So once I knit 2, I pulled the first one over the second and dropped it off. So I actually ended up with this beautiful line of knit around the whole collar. So I really loved the effect of that, and I liked it because it meant that I didn't have to do a cast off and then a sew. I was casting off and sewing it together, or knitting it together at the same time, and I have a nice folded collar. I will say it was a little bit fiddly. I've done a pick up and knit to get welts and things in some Stephen West mystery knit along from last year, and I made I'll have to show you one day. I made a hat for my husband that looks like a newsboy hat, newspaper boy hat, I think of it as European style. It's probably more specific to a country than that, but with like a brim and a bit of a slouch. Anyway, that one had a pick up and knit together to get welts and sharp edges. So I've done that a few times, so it's not something scary for me. I did see a different pattern that has a similar kind of collar where they've actually changed the pattern to not do that. So it is a cast off and sew together to make it more accessible or easy. So both ways work, both ways are fine. One way is easier. I just liked the finish of this, and I rather do the more difficult step to get the easier finish. I don't know. Strange. If you ever want to knit this, you can do it either way. But I was happy that it worked, and I have that beautiful little strand of knitting. It also, I think the other thing I liked is it meant that I didn't even have to worry about the stitches coming through to the front when I was sewing it, because I knew that I was just picking up from the back. Anyway, so that's my honeycomb Aran sweater. It is not sweater weather here today. It was about 18 degrees Celsius this morning when I walked my son to preschool, and I was like, I could use a sweater, a light sweater, but we're not up to sweater weather yet. Give it a few months or even a month, maybe 2, it'll start cooling down. But at the moment, up here, I'm upstairs, but it's okay. I'm not boiling, I'm a bit warm, but I'm not too bad. And it is, I should say, luxury template. It is 100% superwash wool, so it's breathing. I'm not feeling uncomfortable. So I'll keep it on. If I start getting too hot, I'll take it off. Alright, so that is one of my 2 finishes and the only one I can actually share with you today. I am so excited to share the Maggie pullover with you when I'm allowed to. It is so good. So good. Alright, I am going to go now in order of when I started my whips. I'm going to go in order from where I started my whips to now, which means the first one that I'll be talking about is the one that you have never seen on this podcast. So I'm going to pause here and insert the videos that I took throughout the week so you can have a look, and then I will see you in a few minutes. Hi. So this is past me coming to talk to you. I thought I would show you my oldest yarny whip. So this is a granny square blanket I started, I want to say in 2019 when my son was a baby, as a baby blanket. That has not been finished. It has had a couple of growths. I think originally it was going to be the 6x6 or maybe a 7x7, and at the moment it's sitting as an 8x8 with a few extra squares over here. I've also been through a few iterations of what the pattern will be. So this is, I think, what I was designing it to be most recently. Or possibly, I've just realised what I may have been doing instead. But then these 4 in the centre would be with the kind of tealy green in the centre. What I just realised is I think I was actually making 8 of them, so they could be these 8 here and kind of have a flower of green with white or blue in the centre. Probably blue since that's what I've already got. So I'm not entirely sure what I was thinking, but I have been going back and forth about whether I do this or whether I do a simple checkerboard look. Hang on, as I do a quick little corner down here. So just a little checkerboard is the other option. I don't know, what do you think? I kind of like the overall pattern. It's now ruined, but I kind of like the overall pattern, but I wasn't sure if it was enough contrast to have a flower in the middle where the checkerboard is just a classic granny square fun thing. And all the centres are slightly different. So you can see these ones are dark blue, white, light blue, dark blue. Here we go. So here you can see dark blue, white, teal, dark blue, and then this one is dark blue, teal, white, dark blue. And so it actually changes depending on, like, the outside is more teal, the inside is more white. So all that has been very definitely planned. And then these ones, these white ones, it swaps with the dark blue and teal versus the teal and the dark blue. So the idea is that whatever the colour is in the centre, that is the colour that's on the outside, and then the other 2 swap depending on the pattern and the position. But basically, because it was such a complicated pattern placement, it's been in the back burner too hard. And also, since I started this, I've learned how to do join as you go granny squares. And so part of me was like, maybe I actually make this twice as big and do join as you go so that I can just have it done, or do I add an extra border to every square? And I think in the end, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to seam it like I normally would, block them and seam them, because I don't want to make that many more squares. I'd rather have it a finished blanket that I can use or give Although if I did a checkerboard, I could make it into a lap quilt and actually keep it myself, which could be fun. Anyway, I'll probably just gift it as a baby blanket. And you can see over here, this is all the wool I've got left. So one complete ball of white, and then a little bit of teal and a bit of blue, maybe 100 grams of each of them and a 200 of white. So I have a bit more that I could turn it into a lap quilt if I wanted to, lap blanket. I don't know. But this is why it's been on the back burner, because it's at a decision point of, do I finish the squares and finish the blanket as I planned? Do I change it? Do I need to go border throughout the whole thing so that actually you have more white or more blue than you see here? Like I said, I think I'm just going to seam it. It just seems to be a simpler thing at the moment. And while I don't particularly like seaming granny squares, it's not the end of the world. And I like hand sewing more now than I did when I started the blanket. So that is an option. So yeah, the main question now is, do I do a checkerboard or do I do the kind of floral design, or at least a little flower inside? Like even here, I can flip this over to show you a little bit. See, I don't even know if I have enough for that. I have some here that are meant to be a white outside, and I have some that are meant to be a teal outside. So I'm not sure what the plan will be. But something like that with these ones here will all be the teal outside. Yeah, so that, I'll just do a straight checkerboard. If I do the checkerboard, I think I will need to make some more white ones. But I think if I did that, I could flip these ones here that would otherwise be teal outside into white outside and just mix up the spaces. It's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I might set it out as a checkerboard and take a photo. I've already taken a photo of what it was before I started recording. But yeah, if you have any thoughts, let me know. I definitely will need to block them before I seam them. And the pattern, it was actually a granny square out of a book called like 100 Granny Squares or something like that. But I don't remember what the pattern was exactly. And even to finish these ones, I've just had to do a bit of recounting to figure out what it is. But again, it means I don't want to go make a whole bunch of new ones, because it's been probably 2 years since I've actually made one of these. Yeah, maybe even 3. So there you go. So I just thought I'd show you, this is it laying out in a checkerboard, but obviously only the centre is really looking checkerboardish. And the gaps do not help it. But if I did this, I would have one complete square to do up here, and then all the rest I would just need to put the last border on, and then I could seam it together. I just sort of show you this. I did end up finishing the last 4. I decided to go with the blue in the center and kind of the flower-ish look, at least the geometric look. And I've soaked these for about half an hour while I did some exercise, and now I'm putting them out to block. Now, I don't have any particular blocking thing for granny squares, but I do have these mats, which are just kids' play mats that I use for blocking, and these were already set out from the last project. And what I've done is I've just got some pens taken off the ends, and I think it will be here. And I'm putting them in to keep it. Now, this isn't exactly a square, it's actually a bit of a trapezium, but that is the closest size I can get to these, and over here, as you can see, it works out pretty well. So that is what I'm doing here, blocking granny squares. Alright, welcome back. Hopefully that worked, otherwise I'll put a note here saying, sorry, that didn't work, jokes, something like that. I have the project blocked. I actually had a moment of maybe I could get it finished and seamed and have a blanket to be like, haha, look at this, it's done. I didn't get that far, but I did finish the blocks that I needed, and then I blocked them. The squares that I needed, and I blocked them. So this project has been living for those years in this beautiful little bag. It's just a shopping bag, but I got it from Poland 3 years ago. 4 years? 4 years ago now. When I came to visit to see if we wanted to move here, I picked up some of these bags to use as gifts and kept one for myself. So, I'll start with the yarn. This is the yarn that I'm using. This is actually the same type of yarn as I used for this jumper, so you can have a look at the label. This is Bendigo Wool & Mill's Luxury 8-ply, where the jumper I'm wearing is 10-ply, and this is the colour Frost. And I don't know if you can see, I think you can. Frost is more of a white, the cream is a little bit more creamy. That's the difference between the two, although the Frost is also a beautiful colour, and it's not a bright white, so I could actually still wear the Frost. Maybe I'll do that another day. Anyway, Frost 8-ply has about 400 metres to 200 grams. It is made in Australia. So both these ones and my sweater I had bought when I was living in Australia, but brought it over with me. So I have Frost, and then I have these two colours as well. Now, there is a reason. The reason I chose this yarn, or these colours, is because I was planning to make a baby blanket for my son when he was born. So I think I started making it when he was a few months old. He is now 3.5. He's not getting a baby blanket. I'm not making it big enough to go on his bed. I will either give it to someone else, or we just have a tiny lap quilt that can do our rags at home. Now I have realised, I'm going to check down the bottom. Do I have the labels? I do. That's amazing. Alright, so I have, like I said, Frost, and that is colour or shade 312. And then I have Aquarium. That's going to be blurry, so that's colour shade 324. Same stats, 100% wool, superwash as the other one. And also the same stats, and this is called Coastal Blue. So they're all luxury. Bendigo Wool & Mills has a classic and a luxury that are their standard ranges. And the classic, I have made a jumper in, I just find it a little bit more scratchy. The luxury is much softer, but the colours tend to be more muted. So you can get, if you have a look online, in person, they can send you shade cards if you sign up to get shade cards. I just find the classic, you can get much brighter, more vibrant, more pure colours maybe, and then these ones just seem to have a little bit more of a greyish overtone. If you have a look, you'll understand what I'm talking about, I believe. But anyway, I've done a few times where I want a colour of a luxury in the yarn of a colour of a classic in the yarn of a luxury, and I've noticed that bent. So I don't know if that's deliberate in dyeing or if it's the yarn base that makes it that way. Anyway, so these are the colours that I used to make the blanket that you saw me playing with on the floor, and I was making it for my son. I don't know who will get it now, but I did end up, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I did end up going with the first layout that I showed, which was the big border of blue, next border of white, and then kind of geometrically going in. And so all I had to do was, I think I did one more border on a white and 4 borders of the aquamarine, and that's it. That's all I had to do, which is possibly why I went for that one. I didn't dislike the checkerboard, but the thing I liked about this is, one, I only had a couple of borders to do, so I still have in here, I I still have leftover bits that I can turn that into like a doll's quilt because they're all at that point. Oh, they're cute. Anyway, so I was like, I didn't have to do an extra amount, but also I liked that this idea with this in the center and all the borders grouped, it kind of gave your eyes a place to rest. The checkerboard idea was fun and would have been great, but because all of the centers had a different construction in terms of colour, it was just a very busy, and it was nice in that it would have been a bit random, but it was just a little bit overwhelming to me when I kept going back to the one with these 4 in the centre and going, that just seems more peaceful to have just a definite place and the like blocks together. So that's what I'm going for. I finished, as soon as I took this one off the blocking mats, before I even did the collar, I put these ones on the blocking mats. So that was the 5th of August, or the 4th of August, maybe. It's the 9th, and they finally are dry. Like today, they finally dried. I used my blocking mats and just put some pens sticking up in the joins to put them on. And that helped block them out. But then obviously I just had 2 stacks of all of these blocks, and that wasn't gonna help dry them throughout the stack. So once I knew that they had their shape, I then put them flat on a blocking mat, 1 or 2 deep, because that's the space I had. It took a long time to dry, but they're done. So this is I call it, I think, blue granny square blanket. And it shouldn't be long to finish now. It is just a matter of seaming. Most of the edges I crocheted over. Sorry, I should mention, this is crochet. And I did it on a US 7 4.5mm needle. Just a cheap little one, wherever I got it from, probably eBay. Susan Beats. I don't know. Anyway, so it's just a cheap little whatever. I have been crocheting for years. It's not hard for me. It's nice and relaxing. The pattern, I don't even know what pattern this is. I got it out of a 100 Granny Squares book. And I don't have the book anymore because I didn't bring it to Poland. So when I was finished them, I just had to count previous rows. But basically, it's a magic loop with like 3 double chains, 2 chains, 3 double chains, 2 chains, 3 double chains, 2 chains, and join. And then if you're crocheting, you'll know what this means. If you're not a crocheter, you'll have no idea. And I'm using American terminology here. So then here you've got 3 double chains in that loop, and then a single chain, like a chain, and then 3 more double chains in that loop. And then that's where I joined. And then a single chain in that hole, and then double chains, chain 2, double chains, chain in the hole. And then you basically do the same thing for the next row, but you've got 4 instead of 3. And then finally you just do a single chain in each one and come back around and do a double chain in each one. My other thought with this project was maybe I do a join as you go. But I only learned how to do that after I had finished almost all the blocks. So I was like, do I add another border? Do I bring in another colour? Do I use one of these colours to do another border of join as you go? And I finally went, I actually don't mind sewing. I like hand sewing. I like the meditativeness of it. Like seaming this, I didn't mind it. So like I also quilt and I do English paper piecing. I hand quilt. I have started hand sewing some quilts. So I actually quite enjoy the process of sewing. So I don't think I'm going to mind sewing these together. But yeah, so that's my granny square blanket that I have been alluding to for I don't know how long. Since I started this podcast, so a couple of months, and never actually shown you. That is my oldest yarny whip. and I'd be interested to know what your oldest yarny whip is. After that one, that was 2019, I started that. The next oldest one I started last year, and it's a pair of socks that I'm not showing you today, but a pair of socks. It's taken me that long to do. So, next is, not showing you that one. Alright. Next are some socks that I started for one person and have re-chosen who I'm giving them to. But I did re-choose before I had done the foot, so I could adjust. So these are, I have a half finished object, which I think I had last week and showed you. The yarn is a bit of a mess. It is Opal Good Nacht. There you go. It's a self-striping colour 9895. It says FARBE, F-A-R-B-E 9895. I believe that's the colour. It's a 75-25 wool polymid, which I don't think it's the same as nylon, but it has the same function as nylon, is my understanding. And this is what it looks like in the ball. It's nice and squishy. I haven't used from the inside, I've used from the outside, pulled from the outside, but it's just a very squishy point. So that is that, and this is where I'm up to on the second sock. So these are stitch markers, and I use them to mark every 10 stitches so that I know where I'm up to. Unless I either, the only time they don't mark 10 stitches is like here, because the toe was at the right length, and so I just marked the last foot, the foot was at the right length, so I marked the last row of the foot before I started the toe so I can replicate it on the other sock. And the same I would do if the leg is a length that I want it and it's not a 10, I will still mark it so that I know that's where I'm up to. I'm doing these for my husband now. Yay, I've never made him a pair of socks. It's time. So I'm doing these for my husband. They are using Kay Litton of the Crazy Sock Ladies vanilla sock on magic loop pattern, but I'm doing them on Addy sock needles. So it's not a 9-inch circular, but it looks similar to a 9-inch circular. It is, I'm like in the middle of a stitch. That's clever of me. The difference is that these ones, the needles are different sizes. I don't know if you can see that clearly, but they are definitely one longer than the other. So that's what these are. It's just a vanilla sock, so all of the patterning is in the yarn already, and it's a heel flap, turn and gusset is her vanilla sock pattern. That is my go-to basic sock, Kay Litton's one, and I recommend it to anyone who has not done socks before but wants to try. She has patterns and tutorials for vanilla socks on Magic Loop 9-inch circular and I believe DPNs. But they also have tutorial videos. So if you're learning socks and you're unsure about something, you can go look at her videos, but she will say at times, and then follow the pattern or do what the pattern says, and this is how you do this part. So it is by the pattern and then use the tutorials. And the vanilla sock patterns, I think they're like $2 each. So she is very much I want people to learn how to knit socks and join me in my crazy sock knitting, which has worked. I have become a crazy sock knitter. I have a friend who started knitting this year, and her first project was a blanket, which is halfway through. I'm very impressed with her speed. But then she wanted to start knitting a sock or a pair of socks, and so I gave her Kay Litton's pattern, which obviously has the tutorial with it, and she was so excited. she's been able to do the sock, and anytime she's like, I have no idea what she's talking about in the pattern, go on YouTube, watch the video and figure it out. So I've basically had to give her no help at all because it's just so self-explanatory with the YouTube video. So can recommend. Alright, my next project that I have done a bit of work on is another sock. And you have seen this before. I haven't done a huge amount more, I don't think, than when I last showed you. But here we go. Oh, I'll start with the yarn again. This one is Christmas sock wool by Hobby. It is a glitter wool and it's 73% wool, 25% polyamide and 2% polyester. Polyamide. Anyway, it is colour 2. I think they had 6, maybe 4 colours. Anyway, this is what it looks like in the ball. That's coming. This colour here is not as pink as it's coming up. It's a little bit more brown. And this is the sock. I'm gonna stretch that out a bit so you can see the pattern a little. So this pattern is called the Twisty Staircase Sock by Rivalry. And it is quite a simple pattern. You can't see it very well because of the glitter in the yarn, I think is what's making it harder. But it is just knits and purls, and it's just a matter of counting. I think as I go into the lighter colours, you will get the pattern more. I could barely see it all in the dark part, and now I'm getting into the lighter red. It's coming through more. Exciting! But yeah, it's a pretty simple pattern. It does involve a little bit of counting, so a little bit of paying attention. But I think the reason I haven't worked on it much is actually just I've been knitting on jumpers and sweaters, and I think I figured out I actually prefer garment knitting, or at least at this stage, at this moment, I prefer garment knitting. I still love socks. I love the portability of socks, but I want to be doing big rounds. I want to be working on bigger needles. Yeah, I'm really loving garments at the moment. So we'll see. Maybe it's that I'm gearing up for cooler weather. Socks are definitely useful in summer, and definitely useful for conversations or sitting on a bus or whatever. But finishing 2 sweaters in about a week has just made me want to cast on all the sweaters. And I'm still trying not to get too many whips and trying not to cast on too many things, because I know I get overwhelmed if I have too many on. And so casting off 2 sweaters feels really good. I don't have a problem with having too many things on the needles, but I like having needles free so that if I really want to just start something, I can. And like I did last night. And so I have yarn for another, 5, 6, 7 sweaters waiting for me to cast on. And I was looking at all the patterns last night going, do I want to cast on one of these or do I wait? And I'm waiting because I'm actually really enjoying the sweaters that I'm knitting at the moment and the garments I'm knitting at the moment. But the one I cast on last night is a summer knit. And I thought if I want any chance of wearing it in summer, I need to cast it on. So I did that. Anyway, so this is my Twisty Staircase sock. It's good. I don't need it until Christmas. It'll be a Christmas sock. So there's no rush on that one, and I'll just pick it up. Probably I've been working a lot more on this one just because it's so close to being finished. So once I finish that, maybe I'll start picking up the other one more. Now this third one has been a little bit of a fail a lot of times over, and I'll tell you why. So, hang on. So, I actually don't know what the state of my bag is at the moment because my son pulled it out the other day. My son wants to knit. He's 3.5, so cute. He's like, Mummy, I want to knit. And I haven't given him a pair of needles and scrap yarn yet, because he also just likes to pull string and make string and put string in his mouth, and make a mess with string. But I do have some bamboo needles, so I might pull them out and teach him even just a knit stitch, maybe. I did download a game on his tablet that's a knitting game, and so at the moment he's like, Mummy, I want to knit with you. And so he'll bring the tablet over and he'll play the game where he knits on the tablet and I'll knit. So it's very sweet. But I don't know, have you ever taught your kids to knit? At what age? I learned so many times. The time that stuck, I was 13, and I know I learned before that, but I don't know. I'm like a 3-year-old, he has good dexterity, he may be able to do it. You can try. If I give him a ball of yarn and give him a go, I'll let you know how it went next podcast. Alright, so this yarn that he pulled out because he wanted to knit wasn't actually a big deal because it's a sock blank, so it wasn't going to ruin it. So this is a sock blank that I dyed. For Mother's Day, I believe, got some blank yarn and some dye. So I actually really like the back of this. So I've done like a gradient with some grey splotches and a rainbow gradient, and then the other side is a flower, because I didn't want to do flowers on the back, but I wanted something so it wasn't just white. Although I think I dyed it like the pale blue green first, and then I painted on that. So anyway, it was just a bit of fun. I actually used a paintbrush to do this, and I used the powder itself instead of dipping into pre-prepared liquid dyes. I used acid dye. On the back, that's pre-prepared in very pale from another project I've done, which is why it's a lot paler, where this side it was just powder straight on. So it's very dark saturated colours on the front. And it was just a bit of fun. I was like, I have no idea how this is going to knit up. Well, now I have an idea of how it's knitting up. But originally I put it out, I wanted to design a sock. And I came up with an idea and I started, and I think I even did a row or two of the design, and then decided it wasn't going to work because the yarn itself is too patterned. The pattern that I was doing was not going to show up. So I decided to just turn it into a vanilla sock, not rip back. And this is how the yarn is knitting up. So it is spiraling, but you can see it's very pale colours for the most part. And so the spiraling is there, but kind of a bit minimal. It almost looks like micro striping, but it's definitely a spiral, not a micro stripe. And then you can see the really bright saturated colours coming through. Now, I did not like this big thing at the top. I thought it was really ugly, and I was thinking of ripping it out or, cutting and redoing a cuff in a different colour. And I may still do that, but I probably won't, because who can be bothered? It's a sock. I'm wearing it. It's fine. It's hand-dyed yarn. Hand-dyed yarn does things like that. So I probably won't. But I did pull out another another hand-dyed yarn that I did. This is ice dyed with acid dyes. I put it in the oven. I absolutely love this one, and I'll definitely be making socks out of it as well, but I thought it would make a great contrast heels, toes, cuffs for this. So that's what I'm using, but I also wanted to try, again, this was meant to be a designing sock, I wanted to try a different type of heel. I wanted to try a German short row, but I didn't want to look up a German short row heel, and I'd done one ages ago and I know how to do short rows, and so I just kind of went, well, we'll give it a go and see what happens. It's not great. That is my heel. It is the tiniest little thing. It actually fits all right, but it's a much smaller heel than what I was hoping. Like normally I'd have depth much bigger and out much wider. Yeah. And the problem is with this is that the bottom of the foot has a much wider part, longer part to go than the top. And so I would need to knit back and forth on the bottom and then pick up stitches or something if I was going to make it work. But I also didn't take notes because I didn't think it was working. So I'll probably just rip it out and do a short row heel, or possibly a heel flap turn and gusset, but with a shorter heel turn. I saw S.Knits has 7 days of simple socks or something. But basically, I think it's 7 sock patterns, and each sock pattern is like a vanilla sock pattern, but has a different heel or a different toe or a different cuff. So you're doing vanilla socks, but you can actually mix and match with her patterns to find out which ones you like best or which style you like best. So I thought I might give that a go even. Because I like the heel flap gusset, I just find the heel flap is usually a bit long for my foot. And so I need to either do a shorter heel flap or try a different heel. So this is my hand-dyed attempt at a design that failed multiple times. But I am still loving this. I'll keep using this as the contrast, and I don't know, I may end up ripping back and doing a full cuff, but I don't tend to like cuffs completely in a contrast colour. And with this, it kind of like brings that into it a bit more. So that's that. It hasn't been a quick knit, I think because I keep hitting things being like, I don't like this, but also because it's now just a vanilla sock. I have 2 just vanilla socks on the needles, and the other one is more important, so I'm just not doing it much. But that being said, it won't take long once I actually choose a heel to knit it up and do it. So maybe next time I podcast it'll be finished. The yarn for that one, like I said, I dyed it myself. I got it from a company in Germany, which I just got the card. Hösfesen. So they, I'll link them down below. They dye yarn and sell dyed yarn, but they also sell yarn for dyeing, and so I bought some yarn for dyeing from them. And yeah, it's nice. It was my first attempt at dyeing. You can just see here poking up, there's a skein. There's actually 5 skeins there. That's the top one that is sitting. I might pull them out at the end and show you. Anyway, so I got 1.9 kilos, so 19 100-gram skeins or sock blanks to dye, and I had fun. And I found out that I wasn't setting colours properly, so everything is a little bit grey or muddy overtones. But I got more, which I'll get into. But I am planning to do it a little different so that I can get some clearer tones. I like grey tones, I like muddy tones, but I also like bright, vibrant, pure tones. So I'm excited to give that a go. Now, this next project, it's here, guys. It happened. We made it to the 1st of August. I know it's the 9th now, but the 1st of August I've mentioned so many times in this podcast, I think even since the first week. On the 1st of August, I'm casting on my sea glass sweater. And I did. I'm so excited. This is one that my sister and I both wanted to do. She's living in Australia, Melinda knits and sews. I'm living in Poland, and so we wanted to cast on together, have a cast on party, and both knit the sweater. We actually swapped yarn. The yarn I sent to her arrived 3 days after we started. So she now has the full stash scrap yarn to pull from. I have plenty to pull from. It's really exciting. So, to start with, I'm not going to show you all the yarns individually because this is a scrappy project. Most of them I wouldn't even remember. I will show you this one is my main colour. So you'll remember last week I had questions, or last podcast I had questions about which one should be my main colour. I went with the blue for a couple of reasons. One, look how that goes with my hair, makes my hair red. Two, I didn't want a main colour that was lighter than the body of the sweater. I wanted a darker colour, or at least the same kind of thing. And I thought the green would get a little lost, but I also really liked how this blue brought out the things like the little pops of orange or yellow, where there weren't going to be as many of them, but I liked the contrast, the vibrancy. This is actually bought it for socks, funnily enough. It is a Daffodil Road yarn, which is an Australian dyer based in Tassie. And this is called Royal Navy. It's on her DK sock, 75% merino, 25% nylon, 200 meters per 100 grams. Oh, I should tell you, the socks. The Adil sock needles, 2.5 millimeters. The Twisty Staircase socks, 2.25 millimeters. The yarn was a bit thinner. And my hand dyed yarn, I believe, is on a 2.5. Other side. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a 2.5. I knit my socks on either a 2.25 or 2.5 millimeter, depending on the thickness of the yarn. If it's a thinner yarn, I'll usually go down a size, which will make it a tighter knit, but I don't like the loose fabric. Anyway, so this one, I love it. Very excited very happy that I went with this colour. The rest of it, I'll just give you a quick little squiz. I love scraps. These are all of my darker colours of scraps. If I do a little manoeuvring over here, bear with. These are my lighter colours. Now, the reason I have them separated is because the sea glass, which I will now show you, I'm knitting these on 5.5 millimeters, I believe. Yeah, 5.5 millimeter, US size 9, Chowgu circulars. I love it. This is my sea glass sweater. It actually will go this way. Look at that delicious colour work. So a couple of things about the sweater. It's a great scrap buster. I'm using everywhere from 5 ply to 12 ply, I believe there's a little bit. Definitely 10 ply, 5 ply to 10 ply. And I'm not doing anything held double. I did one row that I held double and then regretted it. So I'm not holding anything double. It means that each row has a slight variation in texture or thickness, but overall it works out. I did gauge swatch. I don't normally add be more and more. I did gauge swatch and I'm happy I did because the pattern calls for a 5 millimeter and I went up to a 5.5 millimeter. I'm not an experienced colour work knitter. I have done quite a few colour work projects, but I've never done anything that had this much. Never done Fair Isle. That is on my list of things to do, like an Irish style. that's coming up. But at the moment, 1x1 colour work, and I'm learning to do it better. But just look at those colours. This is, like I said, scraps from me, scraps from my sister. I did buy a couple of gram balls and split them between me and my sister, so we had more variety. There are projects that I'm still working on that I knew I'd have scraps left over from that I've added in. There are memories, there are socks I've made for my sister, my sister-in-law. There's a jumper that my sister made for her son in here. So it's a bit of a memory. Socks for my mum, a beanie my sister made for my mum. It's cool that they're my sister's scraps as well, because I know most of her projects, so I'm able to then go, oh, I recognise that scrap. Yeah, so it's a bit of a memory knit as well in using the scraps. I'm so happy that I'm finally knitting the sea glass. I did end up, I don't know if I mentioned this quandary on the previous episode, but I did end up doing the magic knots for joins, and you can see here, you can see the magic knots a little bit, and you can see the joining row, but that's the outside, and it's not too bad, particularly on camera. The inside, you can see it a bit more because it has some double floats, which I could have put them in so they weren't as noticeable, but by the time I realised it was happening, I wasn't going to go back. And so I thought, if I'm not going back, what's the point of starting? But I still might occasionally wear it inside out because I really like the inside as well. So Sea Glass Sweater, it is a design by Wool and Pines Designs. I'll link my Rivalry project pages for all these projects, so you'll be able to see the pattern through that. Yeah, so it's a Wool and Pine Designs. It took the knitting world by storm, maybe not even a year ago. It was reasonably recent. And a lot of people have finished theirs already, but I had other knitting, my sister had other knitting, so we decided, because we also wanted to swap yarn, we would set a date to swap yarn by so we could do it together. And yeah, I'm absolutely loving having the darker blue. Like, there was a tealy colour or a pinky colour, purpley colour would also work, but I'm just really liking the darker blue that ties it together. Yeah, I'm just holding, like, I'm using scraps. I'm not doing it colour-wise, planning it. I am trying not to do too many of the same colour in one row or in one section, but other than that, it's not a planned, I'm doing it in this order, it's just grab and go. I am, how do I put this? Okay, so there are two things. One is every row is two colours. So I'm alternating, and you can see the stitches alternate. So I am making sure that one colour is always light and one colour is always dark, and then swapping where they sit. So you can see that's the light one, light one, light one. And so if you follow up any row, you should get dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light. The light and dark, I just used a black and white filter on my camera. Like, I split them, and then I used a black and white filter to see if any were standing out. And I did end up swapping one over after that. But it's not a science, and some of my lights are almost the same colour as some of my darks. So when I use them, I just make sure that I pair it with a significantly lighter or significantly darker one. I also have some variegateds. So, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. This blue line with the green, that one, when we get a bit further over, becomes pink and blue. And some bits are quite dark, and then other bits turns into yellow and quite light. So those ones I've just been pairing with a significantly darker colour. And if there are some bits that the pattern gets a bit obscured, oh well, adds to the fun, it's scrappy. The other thing that I have been doing is trying to work through the dark colours a bit more consistently. The light colours, I'm just grabbing and going. I am consciously, I guess, trying to grab the ones that I have more of first, because I don't want to, because I have lots of scraps of some and a few scraps of others. I know if I use them all the same amount, I will use up some of them quicker, and then the second half of my sweater or the sleeves, I won't have as big a variety. So what I'm trying to do is use the ones that I know I have lots of more consistently, and then swapping out which smaller ones I use. Just so that I can continue to have the large variety throughout. But if you look at that, for the darker colours at least, that is using every darker colour once. So that's a big variety, but also a lot of similar colours. And this purple here, I just had enough for one round. I may get one round of sleeve out of that, but that's how little a scrap that was. That was a pair of socks I made for me. So anyway, lots and lots of fun. I love it. If you are interested in doing a sea glass, I definitely recommend. If you want to cast one on now, do it. Let me know and we can knit a sea glass together. It's just, I love it. I really love it. I am doing it, let me see. Oh, I can even show you. That's the picture on the front of the pattern. It is a paid for pattern on Rivalry. I am doing a size 5, or the 5th size, but I'm making the yoke deeper, and I'm going up to a size 6 for my sleeves, which means that I'll pick up a few extra stitches underneath. I'm not changing the yoke at all to do that. I'm just making the sleeve wider. Yeah, and it just says for my size 590 to 650 grams of yarn is what you need to do it. Which I didn't weigh. I'm pretty sure I have plenty. I'm already going, maybe I could do a second one. And maybe I will. Maybe I'll make matching little ones for my kids. That'd be cute. Don't think my husband will wear it. But he has given me permission to knit him a cardigan that I've wanted to knit him for ages. I'll get to that later. So the other thing that I'm doing with this is I'm keeping the scraps, the ends, in a little jar with some scissors. I don't know if I'm going to do anything with it. Maybe I'll put it in a Christmas bauble or something. They're all just every colour, so it's not particularly pretty. It's just fun. So I'm just doing that. It's a good way to not have to take stuff to the bin all the time, have my scissors at the go, and this just sits in my basket with the yarn. Yeah, so that's all good. I also, because I'm working in a basket because I have so many scraps, I just have another little bag with notions in it that I keep with them. So that's where I'm up to. I haven't split for the sleeves yet. I think I have another 15 to 20 rows until I split for the sleeves. But even so, I'm finding it, even though it's 1 by 1 colour work and I'm changing both colours every round, I'm finding it quite a relaxing knit. I'm loving that there's no ends to weave in afterwards, so it's just tying knots as I go. But I'm finding it relaxing. And I was considering, haven't figured out if this will work yet, but I was considering with the sleeves, the biggest problem that people have is changing colours so often. So I was wondering if I could actually just kind of pre-knot a large length with magic knots, but like measure how long one round is and then pre-knot a whole bunch so that I can just kind of knit and knot. But then you'd get colour changes around, not just the beginning. Anyway, that's a thought. So that is my second last whip. My last whip is the one that I cast on last night, which has been a planned one for a while, but I didn't know when I would start it. I started it. Yay! This is the Anya Tea by Comfort Zone Knits. So Comfort Zone Knits is the lady that I did the test knit for. Renata, I believe, of Comfort Zone Knits. This is her first pattern that she ever designed, and it is a free pattern on Rivalry. It is available in English and in Polish, and I am actually knitting it in Polish. Yeah, So I've said previously I wanted to learn how to knit in Polish in 3 weeks-ish. I'm going to Lot, which is a Polish knitting festival. It's held in Torun, and I'm so excited to go to a knitting festival, meet knitters, play with yarn in person, and buy yarn in person. It's been like 2 years since I've had an opportunity to do that. Oh, I'm so excited. But I want to be able to knit in Polish so that I can help people learn how to knit in Polish. I'm already helping people learn how to knit and learn how to sew in Poland, but at the moment I'm working in English because that's what I speak at the moment. And I want to be able to speak in Polish and teach knitting things in Polish. I won't be teaching for money, I'm pretty sure. It's just knitting circle, knitting group, sewing circle kind of teaching, helping friends who want to learn. So what I've done is I've printed out the pattern in English and in Polish, and that means that I can read the Polish pattern, and then when I get confused, this is not giving any, that's a free pattern. I'm not giving anything away, but it is a free pattern. But it means that I can read it in both. And so she's actually using the same, for the most part, the same abbreviation. So M1L, make one left. But in Polish, it's dodaj jedno prawe or dodaj jedno lewe. Make one left, make one right. And so it is different, but it means that I can read the Polish one, and then if I'm unsure about something, check on the English one, and go, oh, okay, cool, and go back to the Polish. And I've already learnt things like left and right are easier. I've learnt from the front to the back, or from the back to the front, in the middle of the stitch, needle, loop. I'm learning the knitting vernacular in Polish, and it is very, very exciting. So it is a bit of a slower knit, a bit more of a exhausting knit in that respect, but it's fun, and I love learning languages, and I love when I get to learn languages in the context of something that I love. So the word for back, the word for front, I actually recognised it. I was like, oh, that's the thing that my Polish teacher was talking about, but now we're talking about knitting. Great. So it is also consolidating other things that I'm learning. So this pattern, I'm using Drop Spell Unicolor, and it is colour 15. I think it was Gin's when I bought it in Poland. So jeans maybe in English. 53% cotton, 33% viscose, 14% linen. I bought this from Lavieczka Pasmentaria online. They're in Lublin, if you're over in Lublin, you want to go visit. And I'm doing it on Xiaogu circular needles, 80 centimetres, and the pattern calls for 3 sizes. So I'm using a 3.5mm, a 3.25mm, and a 3mm. I didn't gauge swatch for this one. I'm doing it with around 10 inches positive ease. So I figure if it's a little bigger, it doesn't matter. If it's a little smaller, it doesn't matter. It's just meant to be a nice, loosely fitting summer top. And this is what I have done so far. If I can pull it out. So just a very small amount. That's the sleeve section there. A long section for the back. The other sleeve section there. And the little tiny bit of front. So this is all shaping. I think in another few rounds I'll be joining for the front. And then I'll be knitting in the round for a very little bit. And then I believe I'll then do sleeves, which will be, let me show you the pattern picture. Where did you go? Sorry about this. I believe, there we go. So I think you do the shaping of the neck and then you knit back and forward a very little bit, but then you split and you do the front back and forward and you do the back front back and forward, and then you join again under the sleeves to in the round. because the sleeves aren't actually sleeves, it's just a drop shoulder tee. So it's all knit back and forward, I believe. So I will be doing some back and forward. I did start these on my Addy circulars, which I really like most of the time, but I found doing increases on them were really annoying, and I wanted the sharper end of the Chiaogu, and so I changed to my Chiaogu reds, which I did get in a sale recently, so that was exciting. And then it's got a, you can't really see it here yet, oh there you go, you can kind of, it's got a yarn over whole pattern throughout, and I'm not sure, it's a t-shirt and I would like to be able to wear it without a singlet top underneath. I'm not sure I'll be able to, because I don't like showing undergarments through t-shirts. We'll see how I go. So I'll probably end up wearing a singlet top underneath, but I did do the yarn overs backwards. So instead of knitting, like putting it around like I was knitting, I went backwards around the knitting needle, because I think I heard somewhere or read somewhere that that made it a smaller hole because the yarn went around the needle less distance. But you end up with a purl, like a twisted purl or something, a twisted stitch. So then the next one you have to knit through the back loop. I haven't done the next row yet, so I'm not entirely certain if that's true, or if I'm making it up, but I will do that, and hopefully it'll be a slightly smaller hole than what the pattern is, and maybe I'll be comfortable wearing it without a t-shirt underneath. Otherwise I'll wear a t-shirt. I don't mind having a singlet top underneath, but the idea is that I do have a nice, cool, loose fitting summer top, so it'd be nice to not have to wear something underneath, or not, it would be nice to not want to wear something underneath. So yeah, this is the Anya tee, cast it on last night, so I haven't done a huge amount. This was what I didn't work on the sea glass last night because I was casting this on. But I've wanted to do it for a while. It is summer, but the main reason I cast it on was because after I finished this one, I wanted another simple knit. And I know this doesn't look simple, but by the time I'd done the back and the two sleeves, the front was actually quite relaxing, and I found it very relaxing to knit. So this was meant to be my simple relaxing knit. Because it's a linen cotton fabric with lots of increases, it's not as relaxing as I was hoping at this stage, but when I get into definitely the knitting into the round, but probably the back and forward long bits as well, I expect it will become a more relaxing knit. But then I picked up the sea glass this morning, and that was so relaxing to knit. I think the thing is, I need a relaxing knit that I can do when I have my children around. And the sea glass is definitely not a have my 1-year-old daughter around project, because she just wants to play with all the yarn. My 3-year-old has learnt to ask first and then unravel a little bit of the yarn that I'm currently using, so that, yeah, it's very cute. So right, that's my Anya tee. At the moment it's sitting in my basket. I actually put out a project bag for it, but haven't put it in yet. So that is that. That is all of my current whips and my finished object. I did also want to show you, this is my sock ruler. It is just a little piece of template plastic that I cut into a rectangle with a rounded bottom. There's no really good way to show you this. And then I just marked on it. I didn't do 1 inch because who needs 1 inch, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. And then when I know what size someone's foot is, or I measure it or whatever, then I put a mark where I need to start knitting the toe, because I do heel cuff down and I know how big the toe is. I can do that, start knitting the toe from that point. And it's working really well. If I ever do something and go, this isn't quite right, I can just change it, I can write on it. But again, this is based on the toe from the Crazy Sock Ladies tutorial pattern. But yeah, I just found it so easy. I didn't know where to buy sock rulers. So you can buy sock rulers, which basically has all this information on it and more. It will have, the size of women's feet and men's feet in different countries. I didn't know where to buy that when I started sock knitting. And I was like, maybe I can just make one. And I did, and it was much cheaper. Like the template plastic was $2 and it was for a giant sheet. So I just took a little bit of that. Worked great. So if you're looking for a sock ruler, you can do that. You can always use a tape measure or something. I just find that you can put this into the sock and bring the foot up so you can actually see a bit easier what it's actually going to sit at. Alright, now, acquisitions. There are not many. Well, there are a lot, but there's not many. The reason I say that is I have been trying really hard not to buy yarn because I'm going to this yarn festival and I just don't want to spend all my money on yarn before I get there. So I've not been buying a huge amount. What I did buy was a colour wheel. So not necessarily knitting, but I wanted, well no, I've been wanting to do some more colour work knitting, so stranded colour work, Fair Isle or something like that. And so I thought this would be a good way to give that a whirl. I generally just pick colours that I like. I don't spend a lot of time looking at these ones are matching and these ones are contrasting. I just go, I like these colours together and do it. And it usually works out fine. But I figured if I'm going to the knitting festival and I have decisions and things that I want to make, this could be helpful to just take some of the stress off. Maybe. I saw it on Whiskey and Wool podcast, Anita's Life. She was picking colours for a colourwork sweater using one of these. And I thought that would be great. And I got it off Amazon, super cheap. So there's that. The other thing, I put in another order for yarn to dye from this place. Hörsfassen. I don't speak German. That place. Again, I'll link it below. And so this is the second order I put in with them. And they sent me a mini. As if that isn't the cutest thing. It is blowing out a little bit, but that's just because it's so bright. Like, it is actually pretty much that bright. It is a bright and beautiful, oh yeah, like that. That is the colour. It is that bright. I'm so excited. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I love it. It just made my day to open up the package and find a little gem like this. Okay, so I got that, and then I got more yarn for dyeing. I actually am considering just keeping one as a base colour for socks if I want to do some striping with white or something. See, I say that, but then I'm going to want to just dye them all. So this one, last time I got one type of yarn for dyeing, and that was this one. It's a 75-25, definitely wool polyamide. I don't actually know if it's a merino polyamide, but it's 420 meters to 100 grams, so it's a slightly lighter fingering. So last time I got 15 skeins of this one, and so that's what all of my, including this over here, is dyed out of. And I'm pretty sure the sock blanks are the same base, but this time I got some of this one, which actually has a different looking texture, and it's a bit of a lighter colour. This is the same makeup, but the polyamide is recycled. So it was slightly more expensive, but not like much of a muchness. It seems slightly softer if I do the face test. But yeah, so I now have two different bases that I can play with and see how the takes dye. Definitely the company that I bought from dye on both and sell socks on both, and it's hard to tell the difference once they're dyed, or at least from the photos that they put up. So I thought that would be fun. And one of the things that I have on my list to make is a birch sweater, birch pullover by Andrea Mowry of Rivalry Knits. I have the pattern already. I bought that a while ago. It's a fingering weight fisherman rib or half fisherman rib sweater. And I was looking through patterns that I owned the other day and I saw that one and I went, I want to make that one. And I just was like, I could see that being made in a beautiful, deep, rich green. And I was like, well, beautiful. I already made, coloured, dyed a sweater quantity of that green. And it's fingering weight. So normally I would need 3 skeins, but I dyed 4 just to make sure. And then I checked the pattern and I would need 5. And I don't have any of the dye left that I made, and I deliberately did 4 because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to match this. I didn't keep notes or anything, so oh well, there goes that idea. But then I found a different colourway that someone had done that they didn't have enough for me to buy. But I was like, if I've got more yarn, maybe I could dye myself something like that. It won't be the same, but inspired by those colours. So I will try that and see if I can dye myself some yarn to make into the birch pullover by Rivalry Knits. Yeah. So coming up, I want to do the birch pullover obviously, but I'll wait until I've dyed yarn for that. I haven't figured out what pattern I'm going to do with the yarn that I actually dyed to make myself a nice green sweater. And I'm debating, there's a beautiful vibrant green mohair by Sanduscan, I believe, that would go really nicely with it, so I could get that and do a mohair jumper, jacket, something out of that. Maybe a jacket. We'll see. So that's sitting there trying to decide. There's a pattern by Rivalry Knits. So she does a lot of sweaters that men or women can wear. And then she has some that she'll, name Gib 1 or Gib 2 that she has specifically shaped for her body or her husband's body. And so people can choose which one they would prefer. And there's a couple that she's knit for her husband or designed for her husband that I'm like, I would love to make that for my husband. It looks like such a fun knit. And he hasn't really seemed super interested a few times. But I spoke to him about it the other day and he was like, yeah, if you knit me that, I would wear it. And I think maybe part of it is he kind of says, yeah, I would wear it without being like, yes, please knit me a jumper. And so I don't find the yarn or the perfect yarn, or I'm like, well, maybe he doesn't really want it. I think I just need to knit for him. And if he wears it, he wears it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But I think he will. If it looks good, he'll wear it. So if I can knit it well, he should wear it. So that's going to come up, hopefully, maybe even at the knitting festival. I'll find yarn for that. Yeah. The other thing that I'll just quickly show you. I catered these up the other day. Okay, so these are all hand dyed by me. They were not dyed to make a fade. This one I wanted to try doing some paler ones. So let's see. This one I wanted to try doing some paler colours and some speckling on a pale colour, and it turned out more vibrant than I anticipated, but nice. Then this one I wanted to try a pink and green with a pink with a little bit of green without overwhelming green, which I think I succeeded in, but it's a bit more vibrant. This one was my scrap skein, I guess you could say. So any dye that I had on my gloves or leftover, I would just wipe onto this. And so this is a bit of a mix and a bit more muddy, but also has a bit of paler bits through it because it wasn't an all over dye. This one was my Kirsty Knits has dye along tutorials or dye along with Kirsty Knits videos, and she did one on peacocks. And so this isn't peacock colours, but this was using the technique she used in that video. And so you get a lot more vibrant ones, but still little bits of less vibrant. I really like that one. And then this was the final one where I have been seeing what techniques work where. And so this was one where I basically did most of the pan in this deeper purple colour, and then I did a couple of lines of some different colours at the end. And it did bleed in a little bit and got a little bit muddy because I moved it around before I set it. But basically it was just let's try this technique and see how it works, what I need to finesse. So that was my hand ties. They all look a little bit muddy, except for maybe the bright pink. But what I was trying to figure out is, do I do a big fade with 5 skeins? Do I do a smaller fade with, 4 skeins? Originally, I was thinking a 3 skein fade for a tee by Turner Cyber Arts, which I also have in my library and haven't made yet, which is designed for a fade. Yeah, I don't know. And part of me, I wanted to do some designing of garments. I was like, I could design a garment with a 5 skein fade, but the design that I came up with when I was looking at them, I'm not a huge fan of. I think because it's more of a long cardigan, almost into a coat. But this would be fingering weight. And so unless I was going to put it with a mohair or something, I don't think I would want it. Or maybe I could do a mold. Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, that is my skein fade that I may or may not do as a skein fade. I could always split them up and just do socks. They are soft yarn. But, I'm interested particularly in this one, how that would knit up as socks, because that was a specific design where the rest are kind of speckled all over. Yeah. Anyway, so that is what's been sitting back there that I'm still deciding what to do about. Like I said, I'd like to design, I'd like to start designing, but I haven't sat down and done the maths, and there are just so many patterns that other people are making and releasing that I want to make. So maybe I'll just keep doing that for a while longer. Alright, I believe that is it. If you have come for the knitting and want to go, then I will say goodbye right now. And for those who are interested in more of my life, I will just share a little bit more of what's going on there. So if you've come just for the knitting, then I'll say goodbye and thank you for coming. I should have said at the beginning, if you are new, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. If you like what you've seen today, then just hit like and subscribe. Even leaving a comment will help YouTube show me to more people who like knitting. So yeah, thanks. So for those of you who, want to hear a bit more about life, we have been doing pretty well this week, or this month. We've been getting to know people. My language teacher, so we're living in Poland, I've been doing Polish classes for about 7 months now, 8 months. And so we're getting there. Me and my husband are both doing language classes every week. And obviously then we're shopping and buying things online, and Google is giving me information in Polish now rather than English. But then I'm also Googling in Polish more. So it's really good. We're learning a lot. But my Polish teacher took us, or her husband took us to a market the other day, which was so much fun. We, in Australia, the closest I would say is almost a car boot sale, maybe a white elephant almost sale. It was all secondhand stuff that people have got in their house and are selling. Some of them clearly were people who had gone and bought things in different areas and bringing it in here to sell them. But some of them were definitely just mum died and these are the things we don't want, so we'll sell them on kind of things. So we got some great treasures there, some beautiful Bavarian teacups and a Czechoslovakian teapot and 3-tier cake stand. I found a French inkwell, a Le Mange French inkwell. I have quill pens and ink that I love using. I haven't pulled them out here yet because of babies. But I love using them and I've always wanted a nice inkwell. So now I have a lovely, beautiful inkwell, which was really fun. It was missing the little insert for it. So my dad has said that he will make me one in silver. He's a silversmith, so he said he'll make me a silver one to insert into it. But before my dad offered that, I was like, if I buy it, I need something. And then I found a little ceramic thimble that I could put upside down and use as the ink well part of it. I was so excited. So yeah, my husband got a replica gun, flintlock. I don't know too much about it, but it looks really cool. Yeah, it was just a really great day, and it was so amazing because it was stuff that, like, the guy who was taking us and showing around, he's like, it's all junk, like it's whatever. But me and my husband were just so excited because it's the kind of stuff that we would not find in Australia, or if we did, it would be very expensive. But here it was comparatively very cheap because it's not stuff that is highly valued by Poles, because it's relatively common here, where it is very highly valued by Australians because it's not common in Australia. So yeah, we just had lots of fun. It was like a treasure hunt, or like bargain hunters. Like, it had that kind of feel of you just walk around to all the little stalls and find what treasures you can get. So that was a lot of fun. They also had a lot of different paintings and artworks, not that people there had necessarily done, but that they were selling. So we might go back another time and see if we can get some art for our house. Yeah, so we did that. It's my mum's birthday today in Australia, so we had a cake over Zoom with her. And I gifted her a sweater that I knit her, which was very exciting. And it fit. Yay! When you knit a sweater, I think I knit it for me and it didn't fit me. But I was like, as I was knitting it, my mum kept saying, I love the yarn, I love it. So when it didn't fit me, I went, it will probably fit mum. So I gifted it to mum and it did. It fit her. Yay. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else. Zechariah's at preschool. He's still loving it. He's starting to learn Polish. Yesterday while I was in my Polish class, he was asking my husband for something and Jordan had no idea what he was saying. And so they came in and they said, Mum, do you understand what this is? And I said, I'm sorry, I don't. And so we were like, can you take us to it or show us where you would use it or where you would get it from? And anyway, he and my husband left, and my husband poked his head back in a few minutes later and said it was chalk. So I looked at my Polish teacher and said, what's chalk in Polish? And she said, kreka. I went, bet you that's what he was saying, because it was like grigana or something, and his speech is delayed, so he's not always super clear anyway, but it was definitely a g kind of sound, which is a harder version of g. So I'm pretty sure he was saying kreka, which is chalk in Polish. So afterwards I told my husband, and then we explained to him that it was really great, but sometimes if it's a word that he uses at preschool, we haven't learnt it yet, so he gets to teach us. It's a bit of fun. So yeah, very excited that he's learning and understanding things when he wants to kind of stop and rest, and I don't want him just sitting in front of the TV. We'll often put the TV on but put it in Polish so that he can learn something and I can learn something and Ilse can learn. It's great. Alright, I don't think I have anything else to share. Like I mentioned, I'm planning to get a pegboard here and some shelves to make this space a little bit more user-friendly. I didn't bring it up. I'll see if I can get a photo of it and put it into the... You may or may not see a photo right here, depending on what I get done before I edit it. But I did buy a mini sewing machine at the market, and it's downstairs, so I'm not going to go grab it right now. But you may see a photo. It was a working sewing machine. It's rusted through. I put some oil on it and it's moving a little bit better, but it's still not going to work. But I am planning to put it on one of these shelves so that it can just sit there and have fun and be pretty. Yeah, the guy who took us to the market laughed because the things that I was most excited about, he was like, why? Why? He was genuinely confused at why I liked certain things. But he was really helpful. He helped us barter a little bit. I did some bartering in Polish. Yeah. Alright, I'm going to go now, see what I can edit and put together before my daughter wakes up, make myself a cup of tea and have some lunch. Alright, thank you so much for joining me. Like I said before, if you have enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe. When I get to 100 subscribers, YouTube will do a few things that will make life a bit easier. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you on Instagram, in person, online. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I will see you again here in a few weeks. Bye.